Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amit Harari, and coming up in today's newscast, President Isaac Herzog is beginning formal consultation on who should form the new coalition. Meantime, the IDF publicly acknowledging its worst-kept secret. And later, the Miss Israel beauty pageant getting cancelled for the first time in over 70 years. President Isaac Herzog has received the official results of the Knesset election. Herzog has been conferring with each of the parties, and on Sunday, he will officially ask former Prime Minister and Likud leader Benjamin Netanyahu to form the next government. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz reports.
Soon after receiving the country's final election results, Israeli President Isaac Herzog began consultations with political parties. He began by meeting representatives of the largest parties, incoming Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud and the outgoing Prime Minister Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid. By the end of the week, Herzog will have met with each of the factions entering the Knesset and will almost certainly receive a majority recommending that Netanyahu form the next government.
בכוונתי להשלים את הליך ההתייעצויות עד יום שישי ולהטיל את מלאכת הרכבת הממשלה ביום ראשון הקרוב. תודה רבה לכולכם.
Last week's election saw an end to a political stalemate after 5 elections in less than 4 years. Along with smaller far-right and religious parties, the Likud-led coalition took a solid 64-seat majority in the 120-seat parliament, easing the process of forming a government.
מדינת ישראל עברה באמת תקופה ארוכה מאוד של חוסר ודאות וסבבי בחירות חוזרים ונשנים. אני חושב שיש ציפייה ציבורית וכמיהה ציבורית אפילו לכך שנצליח להקים ממשלה בהקדם. ותוצאות הבחירות הן ברורות. יש מנדט ברור מרוב הציבור להקמת ממשלת ימין.
After talks with the Shas party, a hot mic reportedly recorded Herzog warning about firebrand MK Itamar Ben-Gvir becoming a key member of the governing coalition. Herzog is heard saying that the entire world is worried about Ben-Gvir. From Sunday, Netanyahu has 28 days to form a government with coalition partners, with a possibility of a 14-day extension.
And with more on the coalition consultation, political analyst and editor of HistoryCentral.com, Mark Schulman, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Now, as President Herzog is holding his meetings with the parties, Religious Zionism MK Bezalel Smotrich insinuating major progress in negotiations for ministerial appointments, what are the latest decisions there?
Well, there are no actual decisions so far. There is an assumption right now that Derry from the Shas party is now going to get the finance ministry, which of course is a bit, a little bit hard for a lot of people to understand since he was just convicted of income tax evasion. But he's going to get the finance ministry. It's not quite clear what Smotrich is going to get. He's demanding the defense ministry. It's hard to see that the Likud would give up both the finance and the defense ministry. There are a lot of little issues. I'm sure they'll all be resolved. To some extent, it'll be a game of chicken, because each party wants to get the most it can get without taking a chance of the whole negotiations going off the rail. The second part of it is Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted to have a small agreement to start with, and that the small agreement would just have who would get which jobs without signing a coalition agreement as to what's actually going to be done. The other parties did not agree to that. They want everything written out and signed before they enter into an agreement. So it could take very quickly, but there's also a good chance he may have to use all 28 days before he comes up with the government.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to wait and see that. And the incoming coalition heads publicized lofty goals of having a government lineup by the inauguration of the Knesset. Do you think they'll succeed to do that?
No. I mean, it's always possible, but there's no real reason to think that's going to happen. There are too many outstanding issues, and there really is no great rush. I mean, I'm sure Prime Minister Netanyahu wants to be Prime Minister again, all of those things, but if it happens a week later, nothing terrible is going to happen. There's no emergencies on the agenda right now that could provide a major problem. So if it happens a week later or 2 weeks later, it'll happen a week or two later. There's no emergencies. There's no budget that has to be passed, no laws that have to be passed in the next week or two. So all of these things could hold off for that period of time. So we'll see. I mean, obviously, Netanyahu wants it as quickly as possible. His partners would rather have it, tied together better than sooner.
Yes, it was pretty easy to not miss President Herzog, that he was caught in a hot mic moment, warning Shas MKs about how they'd likely have to rein in Itamar Ben-Gvir, specifically on hot-button issues such as Temple Mount status quo. But Ben-Gvir recently wrote an op-ed saying he's matured and that if people just got to know him, the chance to know him, they wouldn't be so afraid. What do you think?
I'm skeptical. I have a friend who's known him for a long time, and he's very skeptical.
And what is he saying?
The reality is he's a hardcore ideologue. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's the bottom problem with both him and, to the extent, Smotrich. Smotrich comes off much smoother, and he's had experience being a minister for a short period of time. But both of them are hardcore ideologues. They're not pragmatic. They're pragmatic to get their positions, but after that, they want their ideology. So we'll have to see. I mean, it's going to be look. I think one of the great mistakes people make when they look at the government, right or left at this point, the country is not so much right or left. It's religious and secular. If you look at the breakdown, this is a religious government more than anything else. The religious parties control the government. Even though Likud is the largest member, it's the religious parties that will call a lot of the shots. And the opposition is all secular. So I think the divide in this country now is much more religious versus secular than right versus left, because there aren't that many issues between right and left right now that are on the table. There's no economic issues right and left, and there's certainly no issue right now. No one's suggesting leaving any of the territories, because there is no partner at the moment. So the real issue is religious versus secular, and that's where the divide is. And we'll see what happens with this government. I think we'll see a lot of things that people will not be happy about in that front.
Do you think it's like this more than ever, secular vs. Religious?
No, I don't think the actual divide in the society is any greater than it ever was. I mean, yes, the ultra-Orthodox have grown in numbers to some extent, but less than some people had expected. I think the political situation has worked its way out so that the ultra-Orthodox and the national religious have more power than they've ever had before. And because Prime Minister Netanyahu needs to form a government and he needs to head it, or else he may find himself in jail, he will give in much more than he would normally do. I mean, Prime Minister Netanyahu is a secular person. He doesn't keep Sabbath. He doesn't eat kosher. He's totally secular. But he's dependent right now on his partners, and they know it. And so they will get the most they can out of him. They may push it a little too far. One of the big questions is going to be the ultra-religious parties are insisting on the override clause to override decisions of the Supreme Court. One of the first issues will be overriding the Supreme Court's decision that ultra-Orthodox theoretically have to serve in the army. And I think that's one of the first things they want to get rid of, though it no longer applies to them at all. That being a yeshiva student is equivalent to serving in the army. I think the rest of the country is not going to be happy with that decision. But that's what I believe is going to happen in the next 2 months.
Let's hope it will happen quickly this time, Mark. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
In the United States, vote counting continues, and it's still too early to determine whether Democrats or Republicans will control either both houses of Congress. Meanwhile, in his first reaction to partial results, U.S. President Joe Biden strongly indicated that he plans to run for re-election in 2024. ILTV's Steve Leibovich reports.
The U.S. midterm election remains neck and neck between Democrats and Republicans, vying for control of the Senate and the House of Representatives. The ballot counting process continues, with Senate seats in Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia still too close to call. It may come down to Georgia, which will have a runoff between Senator Warnock and challenger Herschel Walker 2 weeks from now. Uncounted ballots will determine whether President Joe Biden's Democrats lose control of the House and perhaps the Senate as well. Biden was encouraged by the prevention of a red wave which never materialized. Biden also indicated that he's preparing possibly to run for re-election in 2024, and he looked forward to former President Trump trying to regain his party's nomination.
2/3 of Americans in exit polls say that they don't think you should run for re-election. What is your message to them, and how does that factor into your final decision about whether or not to run for re-election?
It doesn't.
What's your message to them? To those 2/3 of Americans?
Watch me.
Okay, Ron DeSantis with a resounding victory in Florida. Who do you think would be the tougher competitor, Ron DeSantis or former President Trump? And how is that factoring into your decision?
It'll be fun watching them take on each other.
In an interesting trend, a Fox exit poll found that there was a sizable increase in the number of Jews who voted for Republicans. According to the findings, fully 1/3 of American Jews voted Republican this year, with 2/3 favoring the Democrats. That number is up from only 24% Republican in 2016. 45% voted Republican this year in Florida. In New York's hotly contested governor's race, the losing Republican Jewish candidate Lee Zeldin reportedly received the support of about 90% of the ultra-Orthodox community in Brooklyn.
In a first for Israel, the idea of finally opening up about its not-so-secret drone program. ILTV's Aaron Porras with more.
An IDF drone crashing in southern Israel Wednesday evening. No injuries were caused, and the IDF retrieving the crashed vessel. The incident, following several other crashes in recent months, however, sparking immediate investigation, and the fleet of Israel's drones of the same make now grounded until the probe is complete. Meantime, this news following a landmark revelation. The Israel Army's worst-kept secret being that it has and makes great use of an array of unmanned aerial vehicles. And now the IDF opening up about its advanced military drone program, which is not only used for surveillance, but also for attack near and far. In fact, the drones capable of strikes as far away as Iran and Sudan, though they're more often used in Gaza, as well as more recently in parts of the West Bank. Further, the IDF revelation retroactive, with Brigadier General Neri Horowitz disclosing that when jihadists broke through the border from Egypt and hijacked an Israeli armored vehicle in May 2012, it was a drone strike that neutralized the threat. Speaking to the annual UVID Drone Tech Conference in Tel Aviv, Horowitz adding that today we can speak openly on the drones, and Horowitz explaining that in a single platform, the drones not only provide Israel with additional firepower, but also for the speedy detection and attack of targets before those targets launch their attacks on Israel. Today, Israel's drones, including the Eitan, the Zik, the Kochav, and the Shoval, 4 models of Heron and Hermes drones.
The Israeli Ministry of Education has come up with a series of practical ideas to fight climate change. The programs strive to inspire the students to further environmental activism and were featured at the Israeli Pavilion at COP27 in Sharm. Here's a small sample.
Students today need to be equipped with a new set of knowledge and skills that will enable them to grow and flourish in a world less stable and less predictable.
חינוך אקלימי זה להבין את האימפקט שלנו כמורים, כתלמידים, כבני אדם בעולם, ומה אנחנו יכולים לעשות כדי לשנות.
We teach practical things that they can do, and they in turn talk to their friends, to their parents, and so we have growing circles of influence through which we can make a bigger change.
Climate change curriculum is developed in alignment with the IPCC conceptualization with 8 themes. This include observed changes in climate, drivers of climate change, future climate change, risk and impacts, adaptation and mitigation, socioeconomic policy and governance, and ethics.
Right now I know that it's really important to take care about our world. We create ourselves new skills about creativity, how to solve problems, how to solve problems that will be in the future.
יותר התחלנו לעבוד בבית על פחות להשתמש בחד פעמי ולזרוק, יותר במוצרים רב פעמים. אנחנו משתמשים במכשיר שנקרא Enviro, שבו אנחנו מודדים את הטמפרטורה, לחץ ברומטרי ואת הלחות שבאוויר.
Now, on the sidelines of the UN COP27 Climate Summit in Egypt, Startup Nation Central is hosting a conference committed to driving innovation and collaboration on climate change challenges across the Middle East and North African region. With me to discuss is Innovation Diplomacy Manager at Startup Nation Central, Sigalit Lidai. Sigalit, thank you so much for being with us. Now, what are the Startup Nation Central's primary goals in participating at the COP27 Summit?
Thank you very much. So we're coming to COP27 to promote awareness about regional collaboration and the need of the use of technology in order to address climate change challenges, especially in the Middle East and North African region.
All right, well, what are some of the most inspiring innovations and collaborations that have been presented thus far?
So we've seen a wide variety of solutions coming from Israel. Actually, yesterday we had an event in partnership with the Export Institute, and we saw over 40 Israeli innovative companies participating there in the fields of energy, water, and we moderating at a round table about regional collaboration, food security, and agri-tech solutions. So we see companies such as Tomorrow.io, Suplant, and others.
COP27 has become a hotbed of new diplomatic partnerships between Israel and also Arab states. What kinds of diplomatic relations are you fostering at the COP Summit?
So actually one of the main flagship projects that we are promoting here is the creation of a MENA Alliance for Climate Innovation that is basically bringing together stakeholders from the region, mainly from the private sector, but not only, to map together the shared challenges and also what are the solutions in the innovative sector that can address those issues in a collaborative way. And it's something that we've been discussing with partners in the UAE, in Bahrain, and in other countries related to the conference.
All right, so you mentioned launching the MENA Alliance for Climate Innovation. Can you share more about it? For example, which countries are involved there?
So we're now in advanced conversations with partners in Bahrain, UAE, but also we would love to see the participation of Moroccan, Egyptian, and Jordanian partners. It's also a process, and we look this as a long-tail initiative that will look at COP28 as the opportunity to do an evaluation of the activities. And what this alliance will do is create a network that will allow us to focus on three main areas that are agri-food, energy and water, and bring together what are the technological solutions that can address these issues.
We're curious, have you been surprised at all with how Israel has been accepted in Egypt at the conference?
Yes, it's actually been a fantastic experience. Everything has been very smooth, and I know that there was a lot of conversations of how this COP for the region would look like, and it's been a very positive experience, and we look forward at COP28 as another more experienced situation.
Have you seen anybody opposed to your presence or to Israel's presence there?
Not personally. A lot of people actually thought that I am Egyptian, but it has been fantastic. And actually the warmness with the people here has been very exciting.
Wow. All right. Well, Sigalit, thank you so much again for joining us and for sharing everything about Startup Nation Central MENA initiatives, and have fun at the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much.
It's the end of an era. For the first time in over 70 years, Israel will not hold its yearly Miss Israel beauty pageant this year. Some of the competition's winners had something to say on the decision, giving arguments for and against it. So, will it be cancelled permanently, or is it just a step back towards a change of format? Here are the details. This week was announced that the Miss Israel beauty pageant, first broadcast in 1950, will not take place this year. The crown will remain in the closet, and Israel will not send a representative to the Miss Universe pageant to be held in the United States in January. The yearly pageant held by the weekly magazine Laisha grew famous actresses, models, and presenters such as Gal Gadot, Linora Bergil, and Ilanit Levy. Its cancellation comes after the severe criticism of the competition in recent years, criticizing the strict standards of weight and height of the contestants. Linora Bergil, Miss Israel 1998, who was also crowned Miss World for that year, reacted to the news on her Instagram account, sharing that it was time to move on. She writes, "A woman is not a body or a face, and nobody has the right to criticize us or assess our weight and see if it matches what's going on in the market." Miss Israel 2001, Ilanit Levy, writes in favor of the competition. "This pageant was my first step in the business. I will always cherish this institution. It has a special place in my heart. I hear the criticism, so I'll say it briefly. I wasn't the thinnest and certainly not the tallest. In my opinion, not the most beautiful either, and I had an opinion on everything. To me, this will always be a competition that is much more than just the superficial beauty standards." The management of the competition did not justify the reasons for canceling the competition, and it's still not clear whether it will be cancelled permanently or will return in a different format. But if it does, it will surely make an adjustment to the world we're living in today. Moving on, a truly incredible evolution as the first ever victim of a Gaza rocket fired on Sderot, now becoming an officer in the IDF. ILTV's Aaron Porras with a report.
Lying just 1 kilometer from the border with Gaza, the southern Israeli town of Sderot has sustained heavy Palestinian rocket fire since 2001. To date, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of mortars and rockets fired from the Strip towards Israeli civilian communities, at least 10,000 of which falling in Sderot. And only recently has there been a rocket shelter on every street corner and an Iron Dome system patrolling the sky. So it's a miracle that only 13 Sderot residents have been killed among the hundreds injured by the deadly projectiles. But today, Sheila Naamat getting to push back. Naamat was just 20 months old when he became the first Sderot resident to be wounded by the rocket's shrapnel back in March 2002. And he's carried the proof every day since, with a piece of platinum fitted into his leg following the injury. He even has a surgery on one of the muscles in his injured leg scheduled for later this week. That injury inspiring Naamat, though, to realize his dream of becoming an IDF officer, which today he's accomplishing. The young officer saying that he has more ambitions, including reaching senior command positions, and he won't let his injury stop him. Then following his military career, Naamat is aspiring to public service, especially in the Israeli periphery.
True inspiration. Former Yeshiva University basketball star Ryan Terrell was in action for the first time playing for Detroit Pistons affiliated Motor City Crews in the D-League. Terrell is trying to realize his dream to become the first Orthodox Jew to play in the NBA.
Shed a light in Division III basketball and in Jewish basketball in general as well. And I'm excited to get...
Let's talk about that. The first Orthodox Jewish player ever drafted in the G League. How awesome is that? And an opportunity to get to the NBA as well. How important is your faith to you? How important is this for the Jewish heritage and the Jewish people?
It's very important. It's, a dream come true for me, and, it's something that a lot of people didn't think was possible. And for all the little kids out there that, are not sure based on religion or based on a belief that they can't make it, I hope to set an example to them that it doesn't matter where you come from, you can succeed in life in anything you want to do.
The 6'7" guard was the Division III Player of the Year and helped lead YU to an historic 50-game winning streak. Terrell says that he plans to play on Shabbat as long as he can walk from his hotel to the game.
Restrictions. You talked about your Jewish faith and Orthodox. There's some restrictions that come with that physically and when you can do things and when you can't. Talk about that. What should people know about your limitations and what you have to go through that somebody that isn't of your faith or of Orthodox descent?
So the main thing or the main restriction would be Shabbat or Shabbos, or however you want to call it, day of the Sabbath, which means sundown Friday night till Saturday. I don't touch electronics. I don't use a car, don't use any form of transportation, so or my phone or anything. So I'll be walking to the games and walking to the gym and observing the Sabbath. And then in regards to food, I'm on the kosher diet, kosher meals for me. Yeah.
He's a superstar. The Israeli 22-year-old singer Yonatan Mergi performed on Kelly Clarkson's talk show on Wednesday night. Mergi performed the first single released as part of the launch of his international career, Sucks to Know You, from his debut album, Dark Side of the Rainbow. Clarkson presented the 22-year-old Israeli singer as a superstar and a promising artist who works with key music producers in the world who have worked with, among others, Beyoncé, Drake, and The Weeknd. Mergi joined a very distinguished line of artists who came to Clarkson's show, such as Dua Lipa, Ariana Grande, and more. About a month ago, both Billboard and the Rolling Stone, two of the most popular magazines in the music world in the United States, included his third single, Paradise, in the list of new songs that should be listened to. Mergi said, "It was my dream since I was 3 years old. I feel that this is where I express myself. In the end, I want to reach the biggest stages in the world and perform with the songs that have won the biggest awards. My goal is to reach as many people possible with my music." He's a star. Let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies expected around the country tonight and over the next few days, with lows this evening averaging 12 degrees Celsius or 54 Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, alongside sunny skies, we see top temperatures of 26 Celsius or 78 degrees Fahrenheit. And finally, on Saturday, we can expect more of the same in terms of weather and temperature. That's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channels on YouTube, Facebook, and Telegram, and subscribe to our ILTV newsletter. I'm Amit Harari. Have a beautiful weekend, and thank you so much for watching.